The world was quiet now. The sun had long since tucked itself away behind the distant slumbering hills, leaving the sky a deep velvety blue. A gentle hush had fallen over the great old forest, a silence so profound you could almost hear the stars twinkling, one by one, into existence. A soft white blanket of snow had been laid carefully over every branch and every sleeping root. It covered the winding paths and the mossy stones, making the entire world seem fresh and new. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the faint, sweet scent of pine needles and cold earth, a perfume unique to winter's gentle embrace. It was a night for sleeping, a night for dreaming peaceful dreams. The moon, a perfect glowing pearl, climbed high above the tallest trees. Its silvery light filtered down through the intricate lacework of bare branches, casting long, soft shadows upon the forest floor. These shadows danced gently, swaying as if to a silent lullaby that only the trees could hear. Every now and then a tiny puff of wind would whisper through the leaves that still clung bravely to their branches, creating a sound like a soft rustle of silk. It was not a lonely sound, but a comforting one. It was the sound of the forest breathing, a slow and steady rhythm that promised safety and peace to all who listened. Far below the moon's gentle gaze, the forest was alive with quiet movements. A field mouse, tiny and brave, peeked out from its cosy burrow beneath a snow-covered log, its whiskers twitching in the cool air. In the high branches of an ancient oak, a snowy owl blinked its large golden eyes, its head turning slowly as it watched over its silent kingdom. The world was not asleep. Not entirely. It was simply resting, gathering its strength under the watchful eyes of the moon and stars. The snow fell softly, each flake a unique and perfect crystal, adding to the deep, soundless quilt that covered the land. This forest was a sanctuary, a place where every creature, big and small, found shelter and comfort. The tall pines stood like kindly old sentinels, their boughs heavy with snow, offering protection from the wind. The thickets of holly, with their bright red berries, provided a splash of cheerful colour against the pure white canvas. Even the cold was gentle here, a clean and invigorating chill that made the warmth of a burrow or a nest feel all the more wonderful. It was a world in perfect harmony, a symphony of silence and soft sounds, waiting patiently for the dawn that was still many hours away. Into this peaceful, sleeping world, a small figure appeared. She was a little girl, with eyes the colour of the summer sky, and hair like spun gold. She wore a simple cloak, not nearly thick enough for the winter's chill, and her small boots left faint, delicate footprints in the deep snow. She was not lost, nor was she afraid. Her name was Ilara, and she carried a small, unlit lantern in her hands. She had come to the forest seeking not shelter from the cold, but the simple, quiet beauty that she knew lived within its heart. She loved the silence, the gentle whisper of the wind, and the way the moonlight made everything sparkle. Ilara's family was not wealthy, but they were rich in kindness. They had taught her to see the magic in the world, to find joy in the smallest of things. They taught her that a gentle heart was the greatest treasure one could possess. Tonight, her task was to gather fallen pine cones, the ones that had opened up like wooden flowers to help keep the fire in their small cottage burning brightly. But she walked slowly, her heart filled with wonder rather than worry. She looked up at the vast starry sky and felt a sense of belonging, as if the entire forest was an old and dear friend welcoming her home. She paused beneath a great sprawling fir tree, its branches drooping gracefully under the weight of the snow. She reached out a small gloved hand and gently touched a branch. Watching as a tiny cascade of powdery snow drifted down, sparkling like diamond dust in the moonlight. She smiled a soft, genuine smile. To Elara, this was not a cold and empty place. It was a grand hall, decorated for a magnificent silent ball. The trees were the guests, dressed in their finest white coats, and the moon was the grand chandelier, illuminating the scene with its ethereal glow. Her breath plumed in the cold air, a little white cloud that danced before her face and then vanished. She felt the chill on her cheeks, but it was a clean, refreshing feeling, not a biting one. She listened to the profound quiet, a quiet that was full of unheard stories and sleeping songs. She knew that the forest was home to many creatures, and she hoped with all her gentle heart that they were all warm and safe in their beds. She sent a quiet wish out into the night, a wish for warmth and comfort for every living thing, from the tiniest insect to the largest bear. As Elara ventured deeper into the woods, her soft footsteps making almost no sound on the snowy path, she heard a faint rustling nearby. It was not a startling sound, but a gentle one, like dry leaves being nudged aside. She stopped and stood very still, her kind eyes searching the shadows under a thick holly bush. A pair of small, dark eyes looked back at her. A moment later, a little rabbit with fur as white as the snow around it hopped cautiously into a patch of moonlight. It wiggled its nose, its long ears twitching as it regarded her with gentle curiosity, not fear. Elara knelt down slowly in the snow so as not to frighten the little creature. "Hello there," she whispered, her voice as soft as a falling feather. "You are very beautiful. Are you looking for something to eat?" The rabbit did not run. It seemed to understand the kindness in her voice, the gentleness in her posture. It took another small hop forward, its bright eyes fixed on her. In the quiet of the forest, it felt as if they were the only two beings in the entire world, sharing a moment of silent understanding under the watchful gaze of the moon. Suddenly, there was another movement. From a low-hanging branch of a nearby cedar tree, a fluffy red squirrel chittered softly. It scampered down the trunk, its bushy tail held high like a proud banner. It stopped a few feet from the rabbit, adding its own curious stare to the silent meeting. Then from the other side, a slow-moving badger with a wise and kindly face ambled out from behind an old log. It blinked its sleepy eyes at Elara, its black and white stripes looking distinguished in the silvery light. It seemed the forest itself was sending its gentle residents to greet the small, kind-hearted visitor. Ilara's heart filled with a quiet, bubbling joy. She had always loved animals, but she had never been so close to so many wild ones at once. She remained perfectly still, a calm and welcoming presence in their midst. She did not try to touch them or move closer. She simply offered them her quiet friendship, a silent invitation. The animals, in turn, sensed no threat from this small human. They felt the warmth of her spirit, a gentle glow that seemed to push back the night's chill more effectively than any fire. They had gathered not out of need, but out of a shared, peaceful curiosity. The little white rabbit, feeling brave, took another hop forward and then another until it was right beside Ilara's knee. It nudged its cold, wet nose gently against her gloved hand. It was a simple, trusting gesture, a sign of acceptance. Ilara felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest, a feeling more comforting than any woolen blanket. She slowly, carefully, reached into the small cloth bag she carried at her side. She had packed a small sweet carrot, a treat she had saved from her own meagre supper. She broke off a tiny piece and laid it on the snow in front of the rabbit. The squirrel, seeing this act of kindness, chattered again, a happy, encouraging sound. It scurried closer, its tail twitching with excitement. From the pocket of her cloak, Ilara produced a single perfect acorn she had found on an autumn walk. She rolled it gently across the snow toward the squirrel, who snatched it up with its nimble paws and began to nibble on it with great delight. The wise old badger watched this exchange with its calm, knowing eyes. It seemed to nod its head in approval, a slow, deliberate movement that spoke of ancient wisdom and the simple rightness of sharing. A moment later, a beautiful doe with large, liquid brown eyes stepped gracefully out from between two tall birch trees. She moved with a silent elegance that took Ilara's breath away. The doe was not alone. Behind her, a young fawn with wobbly legs and a coat dotted with faint white spots stayed close to its mother's side. They approached the small gathering without fear, drawn by the palpable atmosphere of peace and friendship. The doe lowered her head and gently licked the badger's broad back, a quiet greeting between old friends who shared this forest home. Ilara watched, her heart overflowing. She felt as if she had been invited to a secret and sacred gathering. Here there was no fear, only trust. There was no hunger, only sharing. The animals did not see her as an intruder, but as a kindred spirit, one who understood the unspoken language of the woods. The quiet sounds of the rabbit nibbling its carrot, the squirrel cracking its nut, and the doe's soft breath were the most beautiful music she had ever heard. It was a symphony of simple kindness, played under the silver baton of the moon. Connects all living things. The night deepened, and the silence grew even more profound. The animals did not stir from their place around Ilara, their collective warmth a steady and comforting presence. The wise old badger, who knew every secret of the forest floor, seemed to remember Ilara's purpose for being there. With a soft snort, it rose slowly and ambled over to the base of a giant pine tree. Using its strong claws, it began to dig away the snow, uncovering a hidden treasure trove. There, protected from the frost, was a large pile of perfect dry pine cones, far more than Elara could have gathered on her own. The red squirrel, not to be outdone, chattered excitedly from its perch in Elara's hood. It then leaped gracefully to a nearby branch and disappeared into a hollow in the tree. A moment later, it reappeared, its cheeks bulging. It scampered back to Elara and deposited its gift in her lap, next to the sleeping rabbit, a small pile of delicious shelled hazelnuts. It was a feast for a squirrel, a treasure of stored food offered as a gift of friendship. The squirrel looked at her with its bright, intelligent eyes, as if to say, "This is for you. We are friends now." Even the elegant doe contributed to the collection of gifts. She rose with her silent grace and used her delicate muzzle to nudge a low-hanging branch of a holly bush. A shower of bright scarlet berries fell onto the snow near Elara's feet. They looked like tiny jewels scattered upon white velvet, a splash of vibrant colour in the monochrome night. They were a beautiful, simple offering, a gift of the forest's wild beauty. The fawn watched its mother, learning a quiet lesson about generosity and the bonds that tie the forest community together. Elara looked at the gifts arrayed before her, the pine cones for warmth, the nuts for sustenance, and the berries for beauty. Her heart felt so full it might burst. These creatures, who had nothing to spare, had shared with her their most precious resources. They had given her warmth, food, and beauty, all without a single word being spoken. It was a powerful lesson in generosity. True giving, she realized, was not about giving what you had in excess, but about sharing the very things you needed for yourself out of love and friendship.